Dr. Simon Metcalf is a professor of economics at the Hull College of Business at AU and one of our contributors to the ABD Extra newsletter. Each Monday gives us insightful thoughts on unemployment, salaries, and whether certain industries are hiring more or less in our area. Welcome, Dr. Simon Metcalf. And Patrick Reynolds is about to be celebrating his 20th anniversary at the helm of Crosslink Consulting, an IT and cybersecurity company based here in North Augusta. He's a servant leader based on his faith in God and his faith in his employees and clients to always try to do the right thing. Welcome, Patrick Reynolds.
Thank you.
And Designing Minds would like to know where Robin is. Oh, there she is. Robin, please come on up. Robin Baxley and Sandy Shields, who could not be here today, lead the creative team of office designers, furniture specialists, service professionals, and hometown delivery folks to ensure CSRA offices are stocked with trendy, functional furniture and necessary office supplies to get the job done. She is also a member of TAB, the Alternative Board, a group of peer-to-peer advisors in the CSRA. Welcome, Robin Baxley. And Darren, if you could please come up. Darren Myers and Dave Holdeman lead those TAB groups Robin is part of in the Augusta area, focused on having non-competing business owners get together to talk about many issues and opportunities, such as creating the right culture in a company, the right way to operate, and the right way to, yes, hire and fire. Darren was the former leader of Plant Vogel 1 and 2 before retiring to start TAB and SRP Home Care with his daughter, Emma. Please welcome Darren Myers. Mike Pachenik. Mike, if you could come on up. Mike Pachenik is a veteran journalist and communications professional who started here in Augusta more than 20 years at NBC 26 News. And since we're talking about recruitment, yours truly was the news director, and he was my very best hire ever. After other stops, he spent 12 years in Atlanta at WSB and won a national Emmy and a few other Emmy awards. He's now CEO of Pachenik Media Group. It's a full-service public relations, content creation, and media training company. He writes many ABD Expo preview articles you may have read and produces our weekly Georgia Business Minute video. Welcome, Mike Pachenik.
Thank you. Yeah, apropos that he has me moderating this panel, because 22 years ago he recruited me when I had a lot more hair, plucked me out of the Midwest and brought me down here to Augusta, and I could say you've retained me over the years too to help you with your various projects. I owe my career trajectory to, and you might even say my marriage, because I met my wife down here in Augusta when she was finishing med school at the old MCG. And as they say, the rest is history. So thanks for having me, and thanks for this great panel. So let's dive right into it as we talk about recruitment and retention of great employees. Dr. Metcalf, I'll start with you. The buzz phrase, in the last 18 months or so was this great resignation that was happening where employees had the upper hand. How has that changed? Is the pendulum swinging the other direction here in the CSRA as it relates to recruiting and retaining top talent?
Yeah, I think it's swinging, but it's not swung all the way yet. If you look at wage growth, for example, in terms of demands of employees as they change jobs, that's still not keeping up with inflation, particularly here in the MSA. Our wage growth has not been as good as in Georgia or the US, and so employees still have that power. But then if you look at quit rates, people leaving their jobs, those are higher than the national average in the local area. You also see that there's 2 jobs for every 1 unemployed worker still. And so that still gives the workers a lot of power. So I still think there's a lot of, to coin Nancy's phrase, it's still a supplier's market. You know, if you're supplying your labor, that's still going to be the case. Whilst the last panel was on, I was listening to them very closely, but checking the latest data, quit rates are down a little bit on the last data that came out at 10 o'clock. So I can see things are swinging. You know, the power that employees have had in the past is kind of changing, yeah.
What should employers be doing, though, to make sure that they're keeping their folks happy so that they're not going to other jobs?
Yeah, I mean, so I wrote about this a little bit in the Monday's column. I think there are three main things you need to do, and this is not news to all of you. You know, pay good wages, okay? Provide your employees with meaningful work, and I've forgotten the third one, okay?
But it's great.
It'll come back to me. Read my column. It was in the column, you know. And then beyond that, I was talking about things that you can do at the margin, you know. So once you've provided meaningful work and good pay, and recognition is the other one, thank you. You know, what else can you do? And I talked a little about perks as a way of providing motivation, you know. And perks are generally discretionary. So if we do go into a recession, you could cut them back. But whilst they're there, they're rewarding for the employees. So what kind of perks would you offer? Again, they've got to be meaningful, they've got to be related to your culture, but they've got to be something that employees value, you know, and a lot of your employees value, right? So if you're providing donuts on a Tuesday morning, and that's kind of divisive some ways, right? Some people don't want sugary meals, you know, but everybody wants Friday afternoon off, you know, and so can you think about, like, my sister-in-law has Friday afternoons off every summer, just between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And so that's something that, you know, if we enter a recession, yeah, you could say, well, you've got to come in on Friday, right? But during the summer, it's really a nice thing that people can do. They can take a little bit of a longer weekend. So think about things that are discretionary but meaningful that employees will value.
So there's debate about whether we're really going into that dreaded R word, the recession. What are you seeing as it relates to the current economic tides for employers attracting and retaining great employees? And you know, what's the correlation between where the economy is and how the employers are acting and reacting?
So if you look at the data, and I look at the data, so you don't have to. Employment in the local area has not reached pre-pandemic levels. I know we didn't want to mention the C word earlier. Whereas it has in Georgia and it has in the United States. And so there's definitely some issues about retention, recruiting, bringing people in here, particularly places like healthcare, which we have a big concentration on. You know, our numbers here are not as good as we've seen in Atlanta. So is that something related to those wage increases that I just mentioned, that we're not keeping up with wages and attractive wages that are being offered in other parts of the state and other parts of the country? It's something that I think, you know, overall we can look at in our different businesses. Is the economy going into recession? I don't know. There's so many mixed signals right now. As I mentioned, the job openings data just came out for Georgia and South Carolina. It's down in Georgia, it's up in South Carolina. I mean, what are we supposed to make of these kind of things? You know, every time new data comes out, you think it's great or it's not, you know? So it's this uncertainty that's really, killing us, you know? You know, if you knew you were going in a recession or you knew you were going to avoid a recession, it'd be easier to plan, and it's this uncertainty that's causing the problems.
Robin, I want to ask you, you've taken steps in your own business to retain top talent with a yearly bonus. Tell us how that's worked and the success you've had with it.
We have a lot of bonuses that we do, and it's kind of like you said, it's things that can be, we're not tied to it, we don't have to do it. I talk with my hands, so I'm probably going to drop my clipboard. There you go, thank you. Thank you, Darren. He's here to back me up, so yes, that's right. So we do a yearly bonus, and actually this past year, we weren't able to do it because cash flow was a little low. Doesn't mean we're not going to do it sometime during the year. Don't tell everybody that, girls. But so, you know, we're not tied to it. We always say when we do it that we're not guaranteeing it. If we can do it, we do it. But we do a monthly bonus, and it's tied to a goal. And it's a monthly goal that if the whole company meets the goal, then the whole team gets a bonus. And that bonus is based on margin. And I mean, I had a conference I was at one time, and somebody did this, and it was a great idea to incentivize your employees and to not let it affect your bottom line. If you can do it and you're making those, we're paying it off the margin, that we make. So everybody's excited. Everybody's, waiting until those last couple of days of the month to see if we're going to meet goal. We've done it, 10 out of 12 months of the year. We do a loyalty bonus. That's something new we've done probably for the last maybe 2 or 3 years. An employee, we get $100 a year that they've been with us. So we have a couple that have been with us 20 years. That hurts a little bit. Maybe that's why we didn't do the yearly bonus, but everybody's excited. And what's exciting about it is that, even if you have somebody that's there 4 years, they're still excited for the person that's been there 20. And it's a culture thing, and you're liking seeing that everybody's excited for each other. So, and they know that if they stay in there, they're getting $2,000 later too, So that's exciting. We also do a Christmas bonus, and we've been able to consistently do that. But to me, those are things that you can do that aren't hourly, that aren't salary, that can incentivize people. So that's exciting to us.
As Davis said, cash is king.
Right.
But when you're talking to a new potential employee, we know that helps retain them, but how do you use that as a recruiting tool?
So every year when we do evaluations with our employees, they see these bonuses during the year, but and they see it on their W-2 and things like that. We point out to them how much those bonuses added up to be. And so we have that figure in our head, and sometimes it might be, $6 more an hour, even figure that on a salaried employee and things. And, we tell those new employees, that this is great potential, and we'll even give 3 years scenarios, that this is what this turned out to be. So those things are exciting for new hires as well. So,
and you've also implemented some strategies to empower your employees to make some key decisions. You have something called the BLT program. Let everybody know what that is and how it works.
Yeah, we use a lot of Bs. We're the best office solutions. So there's a B story that I'll show y'all later. If y'all come to the booth down there, I'll tell y'all how the Bs started. But that can go good or bad there. So we call it the BLT is the best leadership team. So we as a company realize we're a small company. We have 13 employees. And Sandy and myself are, we love leading our team and encouraging our team and incentivizing our team. But our team, really wasn't stepping up as leaders. Tiffany is one of the people on the best leadership team. She's right here down towards the front, and she's in sales. We have an inside staff person, we have sales, and then we have a delivery installation person that's on the team. So it's only 3 people that are on that team, but we're trying to encourage them to teach others to lead, and we're trying to teach them to take the lead and take initiative to do things. I mean, we do things like we have a pep rally. We started calling them pep rallies last year. We would call them end of the year meetings before that. And we'd always have a theme and have fun. And right now we're calling them pep rallies with kind of sports themes. Well, we let the leadership team do the pep rally this year, which was great for me. I'm, not waiting until the last minute, until 2 o'clock in the morning, getting this meeting finished. And they did a great job. I mean, gave me goosebumps, just because they took it so serious, and they had meat in the meeting, and they talked about the things that we talk about, customer things and things like that. But just seeing your team start to grow, I mean, it's just huge. And I think even, one of the girls in the office, it's changed who she is in our company to me, because she takes it, I think she's respected because of it, and she's always trying to think of what she needs to do to add to the team and things like that. So I just think that's only going to help us grow even more. And one other little thing that we did, and I don't know if you're going to ask this or not, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. So we added a patio behind our office, which, we sell office furniture, we sell outdoor furniture. And so we try to, use what we sell and try to see how we can incorporate it into our business so we can suggest it to other companies. We have thoroughly enjoyed this patio. We had our pep rally on the patio to begin with. We got lucky with weather. And we lunch out there very often. We've got a new phone system coming, so we're going to have cordless phones out there to be able to work there. And, these spaces that are lounge spaces that people can work, kind of like that, coffee shop vibe and things like that. Those things, y'all, I mean, people really, you want to get these people back from working from home because you need them to network with your employees and your customers and things like that. And, people need spaces like that. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it, but you can create these spaces to make a comfortable, fun work environment. And we do have a lot of fun at our office.
You mentioned working from home. How did you entice folks to get back to the office and be more collaborative?
Well, for us in particular, it was a struggle during the pandemic. I won't use the other word either. But, I covered the office a lot. We have people with young kids, and they had to work from home a lot. So they didn't want to work from home every day, though. They really liked coming to the office. So they did come in like 2 days a week, and I'd cover maybe the other 3, or they'd rotate. One would come in the first of the week, and one would come in at the end of the week. We have a great team that does work together. But, getting back, we just really have to make a comfortable work environment, but also a flexible work environment. I feel like that things have changed at schools, like a kindergarten graduation recently that I went to is during the day and used to be at night. So they're taking people away from our office. And so we have to be flexible. So I think that that's something that I encourage. Can y'all still hear me? That I encourage people, other businesses to do is be flexible with your employees some kind of way. Give them a laptop, let them work from home some, but and have reasons for them to come back, even if it's company events or get-togethers or something. So,
great, thank you, Patrick. You've been candid about the fact that your company's culture wasn't always so great, and you've taken steps to fix that and change that. Talk to us about that.
So I think about all the mistakes I've made as a leader of my organization. How many of you guys, raise your hand if you have people who report to you in your organization? So I'm the CEO of Crosslink. I started it nearly 20 years ago, as Neil was saying. And man, the mistakes I've made along the way. I'm an engineer. I'm not naturally a leader of people. I work with things. I understand things. You all are a mystery. So the one of the things that I think many of us are confused about is I thought my employees worked for me. I'm the boss. Do what I tell you to do, right? No problem. In the industry that I'm in, IT and cyber, our folks are in demand. Our folks get recruited. So really, things have changed for me. It's really flipped on its ear. What I recognize today is I work for my team. I'm working hard to make sure we have the delightful customers that are in this region that we serve. We don't serve anyone who isn't delightful. And I realize not everybody's in that position, but it's a sacrifice that we've made, and it's worked out so that the folks that we serve are a delightful group of folks. There are no headaches normally, right? The second is,
well, that way later.
let you know the next conference.
Wait a minute. Was there a connection, an ABD connection made?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
So Robin's organization
You'll
just
get the
signed up
finder's
with
fee.
Crosslink. Thank you. The other thing that has really helped shape the culture at Crosslink over the last few years, I mean, it's been growing, but I work for my employees. That's a giant mindset shift. The second is, just a few years ago, another business leader in town asked me, "Well, what's your USP?" What makes you different? What's your unique selling proposition? That's what USP is. Why Crosslink? We're faithful. We look out for our customers. That elevator pitch, I was totally unprepared for. And the reason for that is I really didn't have the meaning behind what we did clarified real well. I spent pretty much all of January 2020 thinking through the deep meaning behind what we do. Now I look at things through a different lens than a lot of people. Everything I do is faith-based. I recognize that, and this is where that meaning comes in, and it's become part of our culture, is, we're not doing this to get rich. The money is not meaningful to me. Serving people is meaningful to me. Recognizing that I'm gifted at what I do, and I'm not gifted because I did something. I'm gifted because I'm gifted, right? That gift comes from above, in my opinion, and in my belief, and it's not for me alone. It's not for me to get rich, exit the workforce at 40. Well, I missed that mark, right? But that's what most young people think, I in my estimation, what I observe. And so the meaning in what we do today is to use our gifts to serve people, to serve our neighbors. It's not just our gifts, it's our abundances. So the culture has shifted when I realized I serve my employees, and that the thing that we do is very meaningful, and that draws the right kind of employees to our organization. It's been very interesting to watch as people have learned about Crosslink, and people seek me out today to be an employee, which is very interesting. And then I would say the third thing is we take a very proactive approach of mentoring our folks, right? It's sort of controversial to say, but I realize that I'm disciple making. Like I have to, as the CEO of my organization, I have to have put myself together well enough to be able to say to young men and women, follow me and do as I do. I'm following someone else, right? I'm following the Lord, trying to. But when we serve people, it really is a mission, and that's meaningful. And I'm trying to teach people and mentor them to do the same.
You mentioned how competitive your industry is, but you would rather hire the right person than just a warm body, and you've tweaked your hiring process to that effect. Tell us about that.
Man, one of the things I recognize, we have to filter through a lot of people, right? It would be lovely if before you posted a job, the right person came and knocked on your door, right? That's not happening most of the time. Occasionally. But what I realize is we have to go through a lot of candidates. We have to have good processes to get through a lot of candidates. We have to be able to filter out and then spend our time and energy on vetting the right candidates. So a lot of it is I've created a questionnaire that our candidates go through. It's very divisive. I've tried to write my questions so that the right candidate feels compelled, and they say that. They feel compelled to apply for this position, but the wrong candidates don't. So as we've tweaked that hiring process, I use words like, in our job postings, we really have 4 requirements. A desire to work hard and take additional responsibility. That's not a popular thing, right? That is divisive. I've written it to be divisive. To serve with humility and to have a desire for the team to succeed. Again, people tend to be, they want to be the superstar. And so I guess that would lead to the final thing I would stress is we've tweaked our hiring process in that we recognize we're not looking for the smartest person. Again, I'm in a very technical field and I'm gifted at what I do. And I once thought that I needed to hire people who were smarter than me and better at my job so that we could grow that way, that I could deliver the top service. And what I recognize now, having made all those mistakes and had an elitist attitude for a long time, is that I don't want superstars. We've got the best company culture in town. It's a delight to work here at Crosslink, and that draws the right people and it builds collaboration because all of us is smarter than one of us. And we can't be focused on hiring that superstar because that superstar tends to want the glory and they tend to step on other people and be divisive and instead of it becoming collaborative. So those are the areas I work for them. We focus on the mentoring, and then we're trying to build a team and not an individual per se.
Well, thank you for that, Darren. I want to bring you in. You have a philosophy that no hire is better than a bad one. Please explain what you mean by that.
That's right. It's a job fit. I think Simon said it earlier, there's a quit rate. My assertion is that probably one of the most important tasks that we do as employers is hire. And we don't treat it as such. I believe Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, sorry for the Gamecockers, I don't know your coach, but Saban and Smart beat the other opposition by recruiting. They're not superior coaches on the sideline on Saturday. They beat you on who they bring to their team. If you think about what they probably do, they probably watch 10 high school films. They probably have scouts that go to the games. They probably have all the data, how fast the individual is. Probably talk to the coach, probably talk to the neighbors, high school coach. They know that person. And even then, when they come, they don't always get it right, but they're certainly trying to maximize their chances. I don't necessarily see that all the time in business, that folks take the time like Saban and Smart do to go recruit their team. And then we end up with results that we're frustrated with. Somebody quits. And I say that, I guess, this morning from an employer perspective, but I'm also, I guess, representing the employee. It's a job fit. And we don't take the time to take this very important task and make sure that we maximize our chances of getting the right person on our team. And I think we suffer the consequences. So the no hire better than a bad hire is certainly when you bring somebody wrong in, they're going to be one of those data points that Simon talks about, they're going to quit on you. And I do think I bring this up too in my tab boards, is because I think we're desperate a little bit when it comes to labor. We're willing to take a risk, and frankly, more often than not, that risk doesn't pan out. And we're back to the drawing board 3, 6, 9 months later, starting all over again. And it can be very depressing for the entire team. The hiring manager can certainly get disgruntled. And so I think we really could learn a little bit about taking the time to take on a very important task and doing it right. And again, it doesn't guarantee, but I certainly think it's worth the effort, because you're bringing in a lot of either great asset to your company or ultimately a liability potentially.
And you believe that you should hire people not just for what they know, but who they are. And how do you screen for both parts of that equation so that you get the possible?
Thanks, Mike. Hand in hand, I say we often hire for what somebody knows, and we fire them for who they are. We hire for people for what they know, and we often let them go for who they are. And my thoughts are that we often, think about it in your own hiring practices. You look at a resume. On resumes, it often talks about what they know. It doesn't necessarily talk about who they are. And so I think in the interview process, it's important, Mike, to your question, certainly what they know is very important, but I would also tell you who they are equally and maybe arguably even more important. And so a learning that I would try to throw out to everybody is ask yourself, are you trying to do your best? And this sort of goes along with what Patrick's examples were. Get to know that person. Okay, I've heard scenarios of going out with the significant other, understanding, having multiple people interview. I had an individual on one of my boards actually take a potential prospect to this actual stadium and entertain them at a baseball game. And he said, by the second inning, I knew it wasn't the right person. Maybe the third inning, maybe I got it wrong, but he said his words were, it was the best money I'd ever spent. And honestly, it's not just for that person, but I believe the employee. This is about job fit. This is honestly, your employer, you're interviewing the candidate, but I equally believe the candidate is interviewing the employer. And so it's really that opportunity to get to know each other and understand that. So that's why I say that, Mike.
Pragmatically, though, if you're a hiring manager and you've got dozens of candidates, you're trying to whittle it down, how do you screen for that? You can't take everybody to a Green Jackets game, but there are things you can do.
Well, I think just ask yourself, how much time are you putting into the effort? If you agree with me that, hey, this is one of the most important tasks that I do, is recruit somebody on my team, maybe that will be here for 20 years or more with me. That's a pretty important task. How much effort are you putting into that? What I typically see is, hey, somebody gives me a resume, or maybe multiple resumes. I screen through them and I go through and interview for an hour, hour and a half each, and then make ultimately a decision. I think you got to really step back and go, can I be doing this task ample effort just based on the time? So whether it's a restaurant, a baseball game, getting to meet the significant other, I think some of it's just based on time can really give you an indication how well you're doing in this area. The other thing I always like to ask is, and Patrick said it differently, but maybe you are fortunate that you have 10 or 15 clients. I find it very coincidental that often somebody hires the first person that they interview, and you just happen to get the lotto ticket and the right person shows up and you hire that first person. And I think that's certainly potentially a warning sign too, if you're always batting a high percentage on the people that come in and you offer them the job. Seems maybe a little not right.
Now, there's a reason why the NFL teams give the Rorschach test, right? They want to.
Yeah.
They still do that? I think so.
Yeah.
I want to do a round robin of questions for the panel here. I'll start with Dr. Metcalf on this one. Georgia unemployment rate just below, it's about 3%, a tick below the national average. Theoretically, anybody who wants a job should be able to find one. What are you seeing? Is the data bearing that out in terms of people finding jobs?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's about two jobs out there for every unemployed person. The unemployment rate's very low.
But is it the right? But sure, you can go take a job, in retail. But if you have a background in marketing, you might not want to do that.
Right. I mean, so the unemployment rate is never going to get to zero because you've got this search unemployment, right? Yeah. People are trying to find the right job. You're laid off from manufacturing, but you can't be a nurse tomorrow,
right.
At least not my nurse, anyway. You may be able to use a saw in both procedures, but, But I think the real issue that we're still talking about is this labor supply issue. Like people have left the labor force, right? The unemployment rate is low for that reason. Like in the Augusta MSA, it's about 9,000 people less than 2 or 3 years ago. So these are people that they're not working, they're not unemployed, and they're not looking for work either, And so where have they gone? Why aren't they working? These are issues that we're still trying to force through. So that low unemployment rate is a consequence of some of that. If they were in the workforce, the labor force, the unemployment rate would be higher.
Right. Patrick, what are you seeing with your applicant pool?
So it's been interesting. We do get a lot of applicants from the military who are transitioning out. So that does give us a pretty good candidate supply. But to this other point, that's a very interesting idea that there are a vast number of people who aren't part of the pool of available labor because they've self-selected and said, yeah, I'm done. And I think that just goes back to what I was saying. There's very little meaning in most of the work, it seems to me. There's a widget to make, and we're going to pay you an hourly wage. And I get the luxury of being in a job that is meaningful, and we get to do meaningful work face to face with people. And maybe a lot of that rote, mundane work will continue to diminish in favor of more meaningful work. But yeah, if work is meaningless, then people are going to leave.
Robin, any thoughts on that?
It's funny that word keeps coming out. When I had my notepad before, I was scared I was going to drop it. That was the word I wrote down that I think somebody said up here to start the day. I think, Simon, you said it. Provide meaningful work. And that's it's still tough for us as far as the recruiting part. We've tried the Indeed, we've tried the Manpowers or the companies that are helping you hire people, and we're still trying to find that right person. So we are looking for people with the personalities that we're looking for, with the drive that we're looking for, and it is still very hard to find right now. Nothing against the millennials, but there is a certain, it's according to what position we're hiring too. It's just hard to find people that do what they say they're going to do and things like that. So, and we don't jump to hire too quick. We try to put the feelers out there, but we're still trying to narrow down. And my coach over here, Darren, gets on to us, and we were one of the examples that he used. That if you need employees so desperately, how much time are you spending, on trying to find them? And we took it to heart, though. We hired about 4 people in a year and a half or something like that. So we're kind of where we need to be right now, but we still need people, and we need people to be on the list. So it's still tough, but if anybody's looking, we'll be right back here. Come see me. We have fun at work, we pay decent, and we're flexible, so come see us. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Good. Do you have any comments on what she just said? And then also,
I think the question was theoretically there's
anybody who wants a job.
Yeah. It seems like when I've been interviewing for people and or talking to people, those people you're interviewing already have jobs. So I'm not sure the theory versus the practicality of it. I know there's a lot of people out there that either have quit, where I don't have enough science and evidence to know why that is entirely, but just practically when I'm interviewing people, it's people that already got a job typically. And, I was going to save it to the end, but it's a good opportunity. We talked about how do you retain employees. We talk about bonuses and other things. I'm going to challenge you. One of the things I don't think we focus on when people leave, I think they're disgruntled with the team sometimes. I hear that, hey, my job is in crisis mode all the time. The place is always in disarray. We're not as prepared. In other words, my work-life balance stinks because we don't have our stuff together. And so I do think as a business owners, we got to focus not only taking care of our individuals, empowering our employees, but we got to make sure that we're giving them a situation where they feel that they want to be on a winning team. And I don't think anybody can promise day in, day out. It is a job, and there's going to be crisis from time to time. But there's a lot of times where it seems like a lot of companies, that's all you live in. And then you wonder why your employees leave. So to me, it is across the board answers, but I would put a little bit of seed in your mind of not only think about the individuals that are working for you and how you can reward them, make sure your companies and your organizations and your teams are operating efficiently, because you may be running off a lot of good people that are frustrated with the organizational woes, and we don't put enough effort into those. And frankly, probably the best way to do that is get their engagement, ask them how we can fix some of those woes.
Great. I'm going to finish off with one last question here, and then we can open it to the audience. Throw some numbers at you. There was a survey out this week, found 60% of small business owners are worried about inflation, interest rates, and recession. 47% will invest in employee retention, 45% in recruiting and onboarding, 25% will invest in HR tech, including AI, to help them fill gaps. AI. So, ChatGPT, find me a great candidate, right? I'll start with you on this side of the panel. Where do you stand on those? I mean, do you think those numbers are accurate based on what you're hearing?
Well, yes. As far I read the papers and read Simon's articles too. Plug in you, Simon. But I like the first 4 up here and their answer. Really, I don't know if I could answer it any different. I think you got to sit back and focus and understand what's going on. Don't necessarily keep the status quo. I think what I was advertising earlier is it even makes it more important these kinds of times that you do hire right, you do make personal choices right, because, and that goes back to, I think it was Davis's response of focusing. When you are in bad recession times, bad decisions probably are exaggerated or even worse off than when you're in good times. So to me, the things we're talking about up here, retention of employees and hiring employees, if you do it wrong in good times, it probably stinks, but it's probably a lot worse in bad times. So I'm going to boil that to, Davis's comment earlier about just focusing. I think you got to be informed and understand what's going on in the environment, and certainly asking yourself what you need to do to check and adjust.
Robert, are you going to use AI to help find your next shining star?
That is not the plan. We may let the phone system answer the phones. That's about as far as it'll go. So we do, we've been through 2 recessions and a pandemic, and one thing that never changed is that we work hard every day. We pay attention, but we don't want to run scared. We know that, one of the recessions we had our employees getting their uniforms done and things like that. There's things you can cut back as a company that we need to do. There's things that you can do for your employees to, be flexible so that they can still get those perks maybe that you can't afford because you can't afford to give them raises or some of these bonuses and things like that. So I just think, pay attention to what's going on, in Atlanta, and it trickles down here later. Or just work hard. Well, I think a lot of us had the best year ever during the pandemic. I mean, we were one of those people at the time. We have continued to grow since then. And, we just talked to our employees about not being scared and just working hard and doing everything that it takes to, like somebody said earlier, the recession and inflation, they're just going to happen. And we just have to deal with it. One of our suppliers, people asked at a recent conference, their lead times are way long because of all this supply chain. Like we said, we know what that word is now. And their prices have also increased. They did say they didn't anticipate, and this is one of our big suppliers, they didn't anticipate any price increases the rest of the year. We were really excited about that. Somebody actually asked the question, so do you think you'll go down on prices? No, that's not happening. So, just be smart and just be aware and just work hard. So,
All right. How about yourself? Are you included in that roughly 50% who will be investing in recruiting and retention?
Of course, I think it should be 100%. But the thing I said earlier, the comment I made earlier is, to an engineer, you all are confusing, right? We understand things, but people are confusing. Well, one of the takeaways would be, according to those statistics, humans are confusing to humans, not just engineers. So imagine how impossible AI is going to have no chance of understanding people, right? So I think we all want an easy button, right? If we're employers or if we need staff, we want an easy button, right? Oh, well, let's just turn to ChatGPT or AI. ChatGPT doesn't do that, of course. But to turn to AI for recruiting purposes, sounds good. The thing that I think we're missing is there is friction in working in the workplace with other humans, right? Sorry to keep using those engineering thoughts there. But that friction is something that is not a negative. Relationships are hard, and to be in the office and not dialing it in from home, not working remotely, but to be in the office serving elbow to elbow with another person, there's going to be conflict, but that conflict is good for us to grow, to become who we can become. So there's not an easy button, right? We've just got to embrace that, especially in our divided political climate. We're going to work across the hall from people who have views that are very different from us, but we need to assume positive intent, and we need to recognize that we're in this together, and we need to figure out how to collaborate, how to keep the air clean between us, and that when Simon wants something different from me, we have the opportunity to negotiate something better than what Simon wants and better than what I want. It doesn't have to be a compromise. So that conflict is, we're not going to turn to AI to resolve that. There is no easy button. We've got to invest in our workforce and the relationships that we have.
Simon, are these numbers in line with the research you've done here in the CSRA?
I have no idea. What were the numbers again?
Back to you, Neil. But that roughly 50% of business owners are going to invest in retention recruitment, and then 60% are concerned about where the economy's headed?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think people are always worried about where the economy is heading. It comes up whether the economy is doing well or badly, you know. I think one thing I would mention, a couple of things on AI and retention and things like that. Darren made this very good point. 100% retention is probably not your goal, right? You want some turnover in your employees, maybe because of the culture or because of who they are. You'll have some changeover because their spouse has moved or that kind of thing, you know? And so if you think of it as the analogy, again, with sports references, the analogy of a sports team, they don't put up the same team the next year, right? They're always looking for some change in personnel, some different ways of doing things, so you have to recruit different people. And so maybe zero quits is not where you want to be. In terms of AI, I think there's some cautions. I think, I grew up in the 80s, I guess. You know, when calculators were first out and you were taking maths at school and they said, you'll never have a calculator all the time, right? You've got to be able to do maths with pencil and paper. And like all of a sudden we've got like calculators in our pockets, you know? And so there's an emphasis, certainly for us as an education institution, you know, what do we do with these new technologies? Do we ban them, you know, and say, okay, kids, you can't use ChatGPT? Or do we say, no, we need to teach you how to use these tools to make your business run more efficiently? And I don't know what the answer is, so I asked ChatGPT, you know? It's like, so I think there's potential there, but there's also caution, you know? And there's biases in the recruitment process when we're humans. But if you use AI, there's still going to be biases because the person who programmed the code has their own biases in the way that they've coded it. And so potentially, you know, minorities, genders, you know, these different things can be harmed by that. So it's not a fix-all, and it certainly takes some human oversight if you decide to use it in order to make it useful for your organization.
Great, thank you very much. Questions from the audience?
And super, I'm heading back to you. Excuse me. It's a maze. Hi, Emma. Hello, how are you? What's your name?
My name is Jason. Do you want to hold it? Do you want? No, you Phil Donahue this. Go ahead. Right? All right.
What company are we with?
I am with Kite and Key Solutions. So, first of all, I want to applaud the two of you who coordinated in green today. Yeah, it's very green jackets of you. I like that. And you have both, it looks like, stated your cultures pretty upfront. I'm curious to know, do you do that in your job announcements as well? Because I think we've lost the art of the cover letter and the value that it brings, because you know, you said we fire people for who they are instead of hiring them for who they are, because we're not getting the extra input for getting to know that person. And so, you know, some of the feedback that I get over time is that if you stayed up front what you want, what you're looking for, even the type of culture that you have, then I guess I've resonated with something with you here. Then those are going to be the people that they're going to know what to expect, even in applying for that position. So are you in your job announcements even stating the type of culture you are, mandating a cover letter for the intent to know what meaningful work they would be a part of?
Darren?
Ideally, that's exactly right. I ask a lot of owners, tell me what your values are. How can you go hire if you don't know what your values are? And honestly, some do have them and some don't. But I think your assertion of, do they then take those values and get it into the DNA of their company day to day, things like how we're going to hire, what's our job interview. Folks ask me, well, how am I going to interview how I'm to figure somebody out? Well, if one of your values in your company, let's say, is teamwork. Well, why wouldn't you have one of your interview questions say, hey, tell me about a time when you really had a conflict with a teammate of yours in a previous job. Tell me how that worked out. I mean, we don't typically put that kind of thought to it. We're more of a hope and a prayer, and boy, it felt good, and that individual's resume looked very good. So to me, values, if you sit and build your team, vision and values, there's a lot of folks that think that's soft, fluffy stuff. That soft, fluffy stuff is really where you make your sausage. And there's a lot of times that isn't really enforced. Things like cover letters, how to interview. And I would employ everybody to take those things into consideration, visions and values, and use them appropriately.
Any other question? Anyone with another question? Oh, you're trying to be kind to an old man. I don't have to run around as much.
I'm here for you. My name is Anna. I work at, sorry, I don't know how to. I work at Purpose Fueled Leader. So there seems to be like a large talent pool that could be missing. Like, for example, folks with criminal backgrounds, or military wives, or there's ageism, there's retirees. Have you found, do you mind if I just stand up a little bit taller? Thank you, Phil. Have you found that there are successful ways, or there has been success in looking at alternative people who have maybe previously been just not even looked at as part of the labor pool? Do you have any thoughts or suggestions on how we can integrate those people into our workplaces?
I've got two ideas. I guess it's sort of two sides of the same coin. There is a workforce initiative, I can't tell you the name of it, but it is specifically for transitioning military and their spouses or their family, right? It could be children. But I've connected with them. I've received a number of their candidate books. Many of those candidate books are, over 100 candidates, and they put them through certain courses, and they have them go through certain qualifications, especially in a technical field. So maybe they're getting CompTIA A+ certification. So that is a candidate pool that has been put together by a local organization based in Augusta for our CSRA workforce. And then the other is, I recently visited with my brother-in-law and his family in California, and she's a spouse of a Marine. And there are organizations that specifically have those folks, and they're trying to place spouses of military military soldiers. Marines don't call themselves soldiers, but so that is a great workforce. They're not going to be local. It is going to be a remote candidate, but it's a great resource. The cost to find them is very low. There's a lot of collaboration on being an employer trying to get vetted candidates. And my thoughts is some of these folks are brilliant. Some of these folks are very accomplished, but their spouse has moved all over the country because they're in the military. And so they haven't kept a position. They're great finds. We've got a couple of candidates that we're looking at right now.
Go ahead, Simon.
I'd just add, you mentioned ageism, which is interesting because a lot of the loss in the workforce has been 55 and older. They didn't come back. Whether that's because they didn't want to or because of ageism, I don't know. But we've done a lot of things in recruiting to blind resumes, to combat racism and gender stereotypes and this kind of thing. There are some countries out there now that ban putting dates on resumes. So I think there's some things that we can start thinking about in those realms to make the recruitment process fairer for a lot of people.
Let's give a round of applause, if we could, to the panel.